Thank you, everybody, for tuning back into Bar Talk, the spirits and beverage podcast at the Relief and Resource Company. I'm your host, John Foley. As always, with me, Courtney Booms.
Hello there.
Mark Miller,
Hello,
coming to
hello.
you courtesy of iLogic Media. And today, we're going to tackle one of my very favorite things to talk about, drink, put in cocktails, and generally, if they're unfamiliar with it, to introduce people to the mysterious and ancient Chartreuse.
The only green shot I will take on St. Patrick's Day.
The only green shot you'll take on St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.
That's fair. I think it's the only green shot I'll take on St. Patrick's Day.
There's not really any other green liqueurs that I would want to drink.
Genepe isn't that green. It's kind of green. It's paler green.
Yeah.
But we'll get into what actually Genepe
I thought you were
means.
really going to get after it, and you're like, Genepe really isn't that green.
It is too.
But you said it wasn't.
Well, it's not as green as green Chartreuse.
Well, that's fair.
Anyway,
That's
we'll
fair
get into
assessment.
what Genepe is actually a definable term.
Yes.
Which we can get into in a little bit when Courtney's given us the history of this stuff. But I don't just before you get into the history of all of this, I think that most craft cocktail bartenders will say that Chartreuse is one of the liqueurs that has had a profound influence on how they build drinks and how they develop their taste palette.
The Bartender'S Handshake, I think, is another. It's one of many bartender handshakes, but Chartreuse kind of classifies.
Gets referenced that way a ton too. But yeah, the idea of a bartender's handshake is that you celebrate the presence of another respected bartender at your bar by just sliding them a shot of something like Chartreuse or Fernet.
Yeah.
Because these are seen as industry beverages for sure, because of how often we use them and how often they kind of become currency and how you talk to people about spirits. But all these things are also very, very old and have very traditional uses as well. So we want to cover all the bases.
Oh yeah. So
the green and the yellow.
Both. So Chartreuse itself, the word, has been used a variety of ways throughout time. Specifically, it comes from first the region of France. It's an alpine mountain region in France. It's the first chain of the Alps in the southeast, bordering Switzerland and Italy. So that region is called Chartreuse. It's also where the La Grande Chartreuse monastery is residing, and is where Chartreuse is made today. So the spirit would maybe be then the second term that we use, and then the third and final term is the color Chartreuse. So it's the only color that actually is named from a spirit. It's not like the other way around.
Yeah.
Like which came first, the color orange or the fruit orange? We don't know, maybe. But Chartreuse was first, and then the color Chartreuse came afterwards, which was kind of interesting.
As a quick aside, reading through the script, I very much look forward to you attempting to pronounce all these French terms and words.
I will do my
I will
utmost
also
best.
try too.
Before this, when we were just kind of vamping, we were all just using really atrocious French accents, and that will be my mindset as I'm going into it. So
I can't do a French accent that's not a movie character, like a really crappy movie character.
Or like Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah. Well, mine would be more like the guy from the Pink Panther.
Oh, Steve Martin's character in Pink Panther?
Well, I was thinking Peter
Inspector?
Sellers in the original.
Oh, yeah.
Clouseau. Inspector Clouseau. Yeah.
It's a 90s baby over
Crusoe.
here.
Yeah.
So also there's a great reference in the Quentin Tarantino film Death Proof, where he's buying shots of Chartreuse for people. His character, his cameo character, is buying shots of Chartreuse for people. And he mentions the fact that it's the only liquor so good they named a color after it.
I didn't know that. That's a great fun
Remember,
fact.
he's hammering back shots of Chartreuse before they go on with their evening, which ends horribly for most people involved in the
no matter
scene,
if
but not
it's the
probably
green
because
or
of
the
the Chartreuse.
yellow. Yeah.
Fabulous thing to shoot, though, at 110 proof on average. Yeah.
Yeah.
So La Grande Chartreuse, let's talk a little bit about that monastery before we get too far into the drinking of it, because we'll definitely get there. So it's probably more accurately described as a hermitage, because the monks that choose to live there, they go into the mountains and they kind of really hold themselves off. They get in tune with nature. They get in tune with their God, and they focus on that, and they live very, very simplistic or Spartan lives. So the beds themselves are basically, they're raised, elevated, so that if in case of flooding or anything like that, they're up off the ground. But otherwise, it's like just a flat, straight board, and you're sleeping with a pillow and maybe a wool blanket if it's the winter.
With enough Chartreuse at the end of the night and good fresh air, you're going to wake up
You're warm
fine.
enough, yeah.
Do you think
fine.
they sleep with 1 foot off the bed just in case they feel water? They can be like, oh, time to go.
I don't know. I don't know that much about them, I guess. I'm just thinking, I watched a little documentary, and they have like these little stoves in there, and they just live very simple lives. shunning earthly pleasures to stay focused on their mission. So serving their Lord through personal devotion and making incredibly delicious herbal liqueur. The monks, of course, decided to name their spirit after the region, like I already said. But if you go back to the monks' origins, I've got trouble speaking today. Sorry about that. So they're
Tip
founded.
of the tongue, the teeth, the lips.
Tip of the tongue, the teeth, the lips.
You
There
want
we
some
go.
chartreuse?
Yes. So they were founded by a German priest, Saint Bruno of Cologne, who was part of the diocese in Reims in 1804. He was offered this site in the secluded mountains of France by Bishop Hugh of Grenoble. Bruno and 7 companions settled there in the Astaire mountain regions. They build this monastery, and they kind of, because of their dedication to self-sufficiency, they also learn how to breed livestock animals, farm fish, forage in the surrounding woods,
They
carpentry,
do the whole
blacksmithing.
Yeah.
They really are trying to keep to themselves. And their motto, the motto of the entire Carthusian orders, is not just them, but anyone else who declares themselves a Carthusian monk, is "Stat crux dum volvitur orbis," meaning the cross is steady while the world turns. So harking back to that idea of isolation in their devotion, the world does whatever it wants, and I focus here on God.
And they're self-sustaining.
They are very
They're-
self-sustaining.
They're working to sustain the monastery. They're not taking money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not
Not for profit, at least.
not for profit. Not for profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes back later.
It
You'll
does
you'll
come
find
back,
out.
yeah.
But yeah.
But
just
this
generally
is similar
speaking,
to Trappist monks.
yes. Yeah.
Or the beer, which we always view just through the lens of beer, but Trappist monks also produce a number of different things at Trappist monasteries, not
Yeah.
just beer, but
And the monks that we've spoken of before who develop aquavitae earlier on, and that becomes whiskey and stuff like that too. Like, one of the reasons why they're doing this is actually because of a health incentive, I guess is what you want to say. It's they're looking for this elixir of long life. And this is
Well, they're certainly
part of the
onto
reason
something
where
with
Chartreuse
Chartreuse.
comes from. Yeah, that
Yes.
herbal steeped liqueur a la Chartreuse.
so
So
they're trying to cheat God.
yeah. So
So okay, here's what we're gonna do, dudes. We're gonna leave.
I don't know if they'll agree with that.
We're gonna go and make sure that everybody knows we're super hardcore about this, but the whole entire time we're trying to cheat death. Don't talk about it.
They take like
Praise
vows of
be to you.
silence,
Talk
and
about
it's just because they don't want to give away their secrets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. So these monks, they're using botanical herbs and inviting a medicinal influence. This actually comes from 1257, when the Carthusians actually found another monastery in Valvert, which is very near the edge of Paris, at the behest of King Louis IX. He's also called Saint Louis, because he's just a very religious king. They began to foster the interest of pharmacopoeia, or the use of plants from gardens and nurseries to aid the sick or ailing. Eventually, they come across a theologian and doctor.
This plays into alcohol consumption forevermore.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
still in a massive way. So many of the things, especially in the craft cocktail world, so many of the things we pull all the time to use.
Hot toddy.
Yeah, well, or
Like
even,
little things like
even
that,
just
yeah.
botanically driven things.
Yeah.
Extends as far as vermouth and Strega and a million other things. I had the whole entire
Medicinal.
world of Amaro.
Yeah.
And I know we've referenced this book before, but if you don't have a copy of The Drunken Botanist, and the author's name escapes me right now, I knew I was going to reference this book and I didn't.
Someone Stuart Kelly.
I forget her first name, but she's fantastic, and the whole entire book is written about the things we drink, but through the lens of a botanist's perspective, which is awesome.
Yeah. So pharmacopoeia, perhaps.
Correct.
Kind of
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
Of that
Yeah,
direct
yeah.
association. So
Pharmacopoeia.
the monks in
Just like saying
Valvert,
Yeah.
yeah, with an Italian accent.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
Yeah,
different
something.
inflection.
It's Latin.
Yeah,
It's
something.
Latin.
Swarthy.
So they come across this doctor and theologian, Arnaud de Vienvue, I think. Pronunciation again, so sorry, everybody. And his apprentice, Raymond Louis, who is famous for presenting the use of medicinal plants steeped in fresh brandy. So basically brandy that was made immediately post-wine distillation. And they call these essences eau de vie, which is a term that we know of for a lot of perfumes, mainly.
Eau de vie, yeah, eau de vie.
Yeah.
Eau de vie.
Yeah, and there's eau de vie in the spirits world too, and typically you can run into them in reference to a fruit, like you can take a pear eau de vie is fairly
yeah.
popular, and people come to them and think, oh, cute, it's pear, and then you drink it, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Yeah.
because
Really
it's
hot.
really
Yeah.
hot and it's really aggressive.
So eau de vie, though, it's a brandy. It's distilled brandy that's then infused afterwards, or is there fruit used in the distillation?
Well, there would be fruit. So a pear eau de vie
would be made with distilled with pears.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
could be.
Nice. Yeah. So, as the work of the monks at Vauvert become known across the country and beyond, others would soon come to rely on the Carthusians for botanical remedies and healing. In 1605, Francois Annibal de Estres, a French marshal, gave the Carthusian order a document of mysterious origins, claiming that it was the elixir for long life, so the recipe for the elixir of long life. It contained a list of 130 herbs, which they do use today in all their variations of Chartreuse, but it did not give specific proportions. So this is something that they start to work on kind of scientifically. And they figure out the perfect proportions almost 130 years later, or from it takes them from 1614 when an apothecary is built onto the side of Vauvert until about 1755. The document itself, the original 1605 document, makes its way back to La Grande Chartreuse in the mountains, and Brother Jerome Maubec is the one who's credited for discovering the proper proportions. Say that 5 times fast.
You think that Lizzo's one song "Jerome" is about Brother Jerome?
No.
Jerome.
How does she spell it?
I think Jerome.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
Lizzo
know.
loves Chartreuse. This
Does
we
she?
know for sure.
I think Lizzo would totally love Chartreuse.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lizzo, if you're ever in Fenton and you want to come nail some shots of
please.
Chartreuse, just come by. We got you
Just swing
covered.
by. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 1605 is what's on the bottle. Is that the establishment of the monastery in present location? Because 1614 is when we're referencing like
Quickities.
the work beginning to try to find the original elixir recipe.
So
1605 is what's on the front of the bottle.
is the year of the document, the original document when they were given it,
yeah,
and when it was written. The monastery itself was founded in 1084, and then 1614 is when they started the apothecary. So when they started work on it,
Work in earnest.
Yes.
On finding out how to make this stuff.
Right. Someone probably found it in the annals of their library and was just like, "This is freaking dope, y'all! It's the elixir of eternal life. It's what we've been working on our entire
then
lives."
they lose it. They almost lose it.
Yeah.
They do almost lose it
Because they have to peace out and they have to take it with them.
So I will just say briefly, because that's the next part of this. I'll say briefly that when Jerome Malbec dies, Brother Anthony Dupuy, he works on this again, and so it's the same proportions, but he uses more like chlorophyll and stuff like that, so that it is both quote a little greenish and quote pungent and active in taste. And so it's 1764 that the special proportions are settled on, and a new manuscript is written 7 pages long called The Composition of the Elixir Chartreuse. So it's the full document of how it's made.
Only to 7 pages.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am mad at that myself.
I'm sad that I don't have a scroll with it on there.
Yes.
And I would say that Chartreuse is still very active in taste.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's a
Absolutely,
great word. I read that
Very active.
after I got the show notes, and I was like, wow, that's a great word for what Chartreuse tastes like. It is extremely active.
Yeah.
And the yellow a little less so. But like, I think that what's
The
important to
garden's
remember as
growing
we
on
go
your
along and we're doing this is that most of what we're saying right now, pretty much all of what we're saying right now, is initially in reference to the green Chartreuse.
Yeah.
Because the yellow comes later.
Later on. Yeah. So so you had mentioned too nearly lost, right? So there's a lot of trials and tribulations.
Honestly,
that the
if you're an
Carthusian
ancient
monks
liqueur and your
face.
recipe wasn't nearly lost and you don't have some hardcore origin story
it
where only
that
6
badass?
dudes do it and somebody had to smuggle it underneath your robes, I don't give a shit what you taste like, and I'm barely even considering you.
Yeah.
If
So
this couldn't be made into a Dan Brown like film or like
With
a
Tom
National
Hanks?
Treasure, I don't know.
I cannot say for sure that
this has got Russell Crowe written all over it. But anyway,
Oh, you're so right. though.
Yeah.
that there are
he's
like
monkish sometimes.
Yeah.
monks are gonna like hit you with a cat of nine tails on the back. That'd be interesting. All right.
They
During-
love that.
It's during 1793
They
that
would.
the first It's during 1793 that the first smuggling occurs, right? So Carthusians are expelled from France during the French Revolution with other religious orders, and production of Chartreuse comes to a halt.
Out.
Yep.
Go.
A
Go now.
copy of the original manuscript actually stays at the monastery with one of the monks that stays behind for like the upkeep of the building, basically. And
Just a single guy. Yeah.
just one old dude, one guy. And the original document goes with one of the expelled monks. He is
God, no, you must not go.
No.
You will watch the papers. Here's 2 baguettes and a lot of Chartreuse. Stay behind.
Pan au
Yeah.
chocolat.
It had to be
Oh,
Chartreuse that was already
poor
made
Claude.
because this story was shut down at that point.
Oh, but the ratty old Chartreuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd still drink it.
Probably better than Screwball.
So the
Yeah,
original,
absolutely.
definitely better than Screwball. The original document goes with one of these expelled monks. He actually gets arrested. Before he got arrested, though, he was able to basically like pass it off to another guy, one of their friends, and it gets sold off because that gentleman who had gotten the pass off play, if you will, he thought they were going to be left in Spain, which is where they had holed themselves.
It's important to remember
up.
that monk magic is pretty much ninja magic.
Ninja
so,
magic?
Yeah, so you can pass off a small piece of paper really quickly with nobody noticing. You're very sly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the almsgiving.
It's an interesting way to take that.
I feel like they're connected. I feel like the line of study is similar. To be a ninja and to be a monk.
Could be true.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I think the level of commitment's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and in Final Fantasy, monks are very good in hand-to-hand combat. So that's what I'm saying.
I didn't think that was a leap at all.
I definitely knew that.
Moving on. Yeah.
All right. So the monks, they lose it. They lose the document to a friend. The friend sells it off to a pharmacist in Grenoble. And in 1810, Napoleon actually orders all secret recipes to be sent to like the ministry so that it can be like public knowledge.
You're trying to find something specific, or just thought it would be really cool to have them all?
I don't know for sure, but my guess is that he was looking for something specific.
I'm going to find something.
Or
cool.
it's like that semi-socialist view that everyone should have access to everything. I don't really know for sure.
Was Napoleon a socialist?
Maybe there's a
he's
secret to eternal life, or maybe there's just a good recipe for brandy cherries. Either way,
but
Josephine and I will find it.
So during this time, it's at the ministry, and the ministry actually sends it back because they argue it's not actually a secret recipe because the monks know it. The monks that are expelled from France, but I don't know exactly what happened there, but they say that it gets sent back to the pharmacist. When the pharmacist dies, his heirs give it back to the monastery because apparently at the first place they were not super happy that he had it or sold it, whichever one. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so again, this is the first trial, if you will, of the Carthusian monks in their attempt to create Chartreuse for the masses. The second trial is in 1903. The French government nationalized the Chartreuse distillery, and the monks were expelled from their home again. They resettle in the Carthusian monastery in Taronga, Spain, and build a new distillery there and start producing liquor again. There's super vintage bottles, if any are available left. They are highly sought after.
Chartreuse.
Yeah, Spanish Chartreuse.
Yeah.
For about 8 years, they also had a second distillery in France, in Marseille. This is when tarragon becomes an additional modifier for the drinking styles of the liqueur, and it's noted on the bottles that are produced there. So at the time that it was nationalized, there's a small group of distillers who work with the French government and try to start making the spirit in the original location while the monks were out, but they become bankrupt by 1929.
This is too hard.
It's much too hard, and they don't have the recipe. The secret is still with the monks.
They're
just trying to recreate
a good
it.
Accountant,
right?
No.
Is the problem.
Shares, true. And so shares of the bankrupt company are bought out by friends of the monks, not the ones who are going to sell the recipe to pharmacists, I suppose. And it gets returned to them, allowing them to produce Chartreuse again. And and liquor making has gone back to the original classic fashion, if you will.
And has remained so since.
Except for 1935, when a landslide does crush the original distillery, and it is moved to Voiron, France. Voiron, France.
I thought about making a spoken word Stevie Nicks reference and decided against it.
I was like, throw it in there.
That'd be dumb. Right on cue.
If it's dumb, I'll do it.
So Voiron is actually where Chartreuse is still made today. So now this is the kind of final resting spot for Chartreuse.
87 years.
87 years. Yep, just to the west outside of the original site. And I've got the
you can go there.
BEP bottle, and it's still actually labeled Voiron is the location there.
And you can go there.
You can go there. The only spot on La Grande Chartreuse that you can go to is the old outhouse, which has turned into a museum. It's a museum now. It is not a shitter anymore. But you can't actually enter the monastery unless you're a monk. Yeah. So the museum is second best.
Take a selfie outside the walls, get a bathroom break, and then please move on.
All in the same place.
All in the same place. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. So that's the majority of the history of the Carthusian order and how they developed Chartreuse.
So I guess back to the liqueur itself and its use. When we did the show on Wondrich a couple episodes ago, we all referenced him as somebody who was really instrumental in shaping the creative minds of the bartenders whose who read his books.
Mhm.
And Dale DeGroff is one of those people, and Aubrey Sanders is one of those people. And, depending on who you found it when, like Gaz Regan's one of those people, Simon Difford's one of those people. And the bar staff of all these famous bars, all these books that people read, people who are older and have been in the industry for a while, or the people who are just getting into it now, there's about 20, 25 books everybody's going to say, oh, you have to read them. And Chartreuse quickly becomes one of the 5 or 6 canonical liqueurs that you have to have along with your base spirits to make most of these drinks that you initially want to make.
That's a great word to use, canonical.
Yeah, well, it's part of the bartender spirits canon, right?
If you can only have 20 bottles on your back bar,
right?
Chartreuse
Or
is definitely one of
even
them.
be charitable because you're going to run out of shit really quick. Say you can have 40.
True.
Chartreuse and both of them, yellow and green, are quickly going to become bottles you have to have outside of your base spirits. Otherwise, you just can't make any of this shit, right? So you're going to have to go get vermouth. You're going to have to get Chartreuse, maraschino liqueur.
Yeah, some Elixir.
And those ones are immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate, and then you can start debating amongst some fruit liqueurs and some other things. You probably have to have absinthe if you want to accomplish, a Sazerac and a Corpse Survivor. But really, really quickly, you realize how necessary this stuff is. So I remember when I was first starting to dick around with recipes at home, I had to spend the money to go get it because nobody else had it.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times too with Chartreuse, I feel like with bars, you don't see one without the other, green without yellow, or vice versa, because
nobody carries just one. You have to carry both.
Yep.
They're very interestingly complex for having the exact same base, right? So it's those 130 herbs, herbs, spices, botanicals, whatever it ends up being, but it's those in different proportions. And then they have the VEP, the extra age.
Different proportions, different proof.
The same, starts, if you will.
Because for both of them, the residual sugar is super high.
Yes.
Like you drink Chartreuse and it's very, very sugary.
Yeah.
What you don't taste the first time you drink green Chartreuse is as much as yellow is the sugar, because you have this, and the portions of the botanicals in green Chartreuse are so aggressively big on your palate the first time. It literally tastes green. Like when people ask me who have never tasted it before, like, what does it taste like? I'm like, it tastes green, and I'm not being a dick. This is really what it tastes like. It tastes
the color green.
All of the green stuff that you could possibly eat is in there.
Yeah, if you remember your 3rd grade class play where you described like
we did Glengarry Glen Ross. A lot of people thought it was really inappropriate, but I mean, I did the Ed Harris.
No, like
it was really good.
Well, maybe if the composition of a cell or something like that, where you talk about like a plant cell having like a ton of chlorophyll in it. Like, I don't know why I think chlorophyll tastes like, but I always picture probably green Chartreuse.
Have you ever had chlorophyll water?
No, does that exist?
It's a thing.
All right.
It was at my gym one time, and I tried it out. I was like, oh.
You can probably buy a liter of it on the fucking Goop website from Gwyneth Paltrow for $950, but it'll come with a $82 white T-shirt for free.
I will also pick up on the note that you said about sugar. So you don't know the recipe because, again, it's super secret. It is known that a neutral base for the spirit comes from beets, so probably sugar beets, considering how sweet it is. And it's also in a region of northern France where a ton of sugar beets is produced, so I have to assume that. And then yellow Chartreuse is noted to use honey as a sweetener. That is known.
There's an obvious honey presence to
yellow.
And yellow shows off flowers a lot more than green.
Floral and like a ton of pepper spice. That's what I get out of that one too, which I always like because it's like really sweet on the front end of it, a nice medium palate, and then hot pepper.
So I read somebody's little breakdown of Chartreuse online. I was reading through like blogs and just people who had found themselves passionate enough to write about Chartreuse and put something out into the world about it. And one of these sites, I think it was like Two Good Cooks or something like that. It's a husband and wife team, and they started with how do you drink Chartreuse, and their answer was literally however you want.
Yeah.
You can drink it however you want. It goes in
as you might whiskey. Yeah,
the applications for it are massive in terms of cocktails, but it's very, very palatable on its own.
Yeah, and there's the different variations. So we have only a few available to us in the US. It's green Chartreuse, yellow Chartreuse, and the aged versions of each. But then there's a 3rd version called Elixir Végétal de la Grande Chartreuse. It's like that original, the oldest recipe from 1735.
Killing the pronunciation. Yeah.
I'm just imagining myself as a French character in a movie. And
so
that whoopsie daisy.
No, it's good. So we're little bottles.
Yeah, they're little bottles. They're superiorly intense. They're littler than for anyone watching this tiny San Pellegrino bottle.
I like these little San Pel bottles because I feel like a giant when I'm drinking them. It's like drinking a little King's Lager. They're like 9 ounces. You can just like hold them in your mitts.
But like those bottles of, you had it in the show notes.
Underberg is another. So there's
yeah.
small bottles. You treat them probably more like cocktail bitters.
It's a German Amaro bitter,
right?
Potable bitter,
and it's wholly medicinal in the sense that, like, if you have an upset stomach, the way that an Italian might drink Fernet, you would put some of these cocktail bitters on a sugar cube and then dissolve that in hot water, or maybe just drink it like a little nip of it straight, and that's supposed to kind of revitalize you, so to speak. If you can put it in a cocktail, it's probably used like bitters in that sense, or you'd have to get really, really creative because it's superiorly intense.
Yeah, and probably very
the best way to say that
for your cocktail.
Yeah.
Do y'all know why we can't get that here? We can get the other 4, but we can't get the super special intense version.
I do know why, actually, because, and you can see if I'm wrong, I think it's because the original recipe of Chartreuse's production was grandfathered in before ingredient oversight.
Yeah, the TTB, or the Alcohol and Tobacco Trade Bureau, they started intense regulations, and because the monks would not give over the recipe, they're like, fine, F you. You can keep these ones because they're already here, and we know nobody's died of them as far as they could tell.
Right.
But
as far as we can tell,
as far as we can tell, it could be psychedelic.
This is school you.
We have no idea.
I have to find out.
I always found that to be an interesting fact about Chartreuse.
I know we need a friend who's traveling to Europe to buy some for us.
Whoops.
We need friends.
Yeah, your sister was just over there.
Yeah, my sister was just in France. I should have asked her then. But
and most of their pictures looked like hills and then fish and chips.
Because they went to Scotland. They went to Scotland first.
Yeah, a lot of hills and fish and chips.
Yeah, lots of hills and fish and chips.
Yeah,
and haggis.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. All right. So, is there anything? I mean, is there anything personal that you guys want to say about Chartreuse? I mean, for me, it's been one of those things that I've looked to and leaned on for cocktails since I started getting serious about making cocktails, because I found the flavor so pleasing that I always wanted to go back to see how I could have it inform on other flavors.
I mean, I feel like it should be noted that, you know, anytime we're making a new bar menu here at the R&R, we kind of have to like all 3 force ourselves to find something other than Chartreuse to use, because we all want to use it.
Yeah, there was that one menu who had like 6 different cocktails with Chartreuse in it.
Yeah.
Was that the one I first got hired in on, I think?
Yeah.
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 That's that
was the one
it's good, but it's
you were first working on it, but like Mark, Carl, and I were working on it too. And when Carl was here, he put a lot of Chartreuse in his
Yeah.
I mean, I'll always try to slip Chartreuse into anything I can because I think it's great. But there are other things you can use too, like, you know, Strega, like you said, is another really good one. But Chartreuse is so like singular.
Dolan Genepe, which is a product from Dolan, the vermouth producer.
Yeah.
And apparently Genepe just means a liqueur made from the natural flora. Like alpine flora, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Genepe isn't that one specifically like gentian based or something like that? Or
but I taste gentian in regular Chartreuse.
That's
too.
true. Yeah,
so Bonal is gentian based.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Speaking of a liqueur being like kind of classified as using the natural flora and fauna around it. Yeah. Maybe fauna, maybe not fauna. That'd be interesting though if they did. Natural flora and botanica.
This one comes with deer brains.
Since the recipe was given to the monks in 1605, and we know that only about I researched it, and about 30% of those herbs are actually native to the Alpine region of France. It's presumed that the world spice trade was very open and wide at that time. So it could they could be getting spices from India, from China, anywhere in Europe. Europe was open, and the Americas had also been found at that point and colonized. And so some of those items from even some of our natural flora
not made a nation quite yet, but it was colonized.
Right.
And there was people hanging out.
Resources were accessible to France, basically, is the point there. So I always find that to be incredibly interesting as far as Chartreuse.
Why are we picking so much of this? I don't know. Some French guy wants it, but he's giving us one.
The other thing is the Alpine region of France, where La Grande Chartreuse is, they have a huge amount of Alpine honeysuckle, and I think perhaps that's part of the reason why it's so sweet and floral, and maybe in the yellow Chartreuse specifically, but in both Chartreuses, alongside sugar beets.
Yes.
This is a theory because, again, it's a secret recipe. Only 3 monks are allowed to know what the recipe is at any given time. They are sworn to silence and secrecy.
They probably don't talk much anyway.
Because they hand diverse the botanicals, herbs, and spices. They separate them by hand is the better way to say that. And they put them in numbered bags, secret numbered bags. So like every time it gets sent back out to, say, a distillery or a production facility so that the other monks can finish cooking it, if you will.
Yes.
They don't even know what's in there either. They just
So the guys distilling it don't even know what is in those bags.
Nope. No, the only thing too
It's
is
a lot like Gus Fring's meth operation in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
only 2 guys know
That's
the
good
recipe,
pull.
but
Oh,
everything
do-
else is completely diversified.
Yeah.
do you think that's where the storyline and the script for Breaking Bad comes
Yeah.
from?
Absolutely.
Carthusian
Big fans of
obviously.
Chartreuse.
Vince
Yeah.
Gilligan, we know what you're up to.
You're not gonna get that past gas guy.
Figured it
I
out.
just
I'm going to
pictured-
celebrate that right now.
Gilligan and his
Oh, it's
boat
time to
hat
drink. Thank the
producing
Lord.
meth now. It's fantastic. All right, let's try this out.
So green, well, yellow first. So yellow comes later.
The recipe for yellow chartreuse comes later.
Yes.
Yeah. It's sweetened, even more drinkable, and incredibly floral.
80 proof.
Mhm.
And oftentimes the monks at the monastery will mix them together.
Oh, this is news to me.
Really?
Yeah, the 50-50. Yeah, the monks will drink them together.
Like a 50-50 martini, but with straight
Yeah,
chartreuse.
green and yellow mixed together. Yeah. So
A lovely
I'm
color.
going to sip this and then I'm going to add a little bit of green to it because I don't remember to do that as often as I'd like, but every time I have, I really like green and yellow mixed together.
The yellow color of this is so insanely bright. It's like maybe steeping lemon peels in hot
Yeah,
water
so
maybe would produce this
I've heard
color.
them
It's
described
just-
as the green chartreuse has been described as the literal color in between green and yellow, or rather a bright forest green with a little bit of yellow in it. And the yellow is the exact opposite. It's vibrant yellow with a
Reverse.
little bit of green in it.
Yeah.
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 So looking over my notes, the
Quite accurate, I would say.
the yellow chartreuse was redeveloped into a drinking liqueur in 1764.
I mean, previously it was a bath bomb.
A bath bomb?
A bath bomb.
Balm. Yes.
Or was it just a lotion?
Well, I was thinking bath bomb, like the
That's what I was
Lush
thinking.
products that
Yeah,
you just add it to your
like
your
Gwyneth Paltrow
tub.
would sell for
what?
$120.
I actually want to add herbal to
For
liqueurs
goop
to
or
my
whatever the
my
fuck it's
bath.
called.
I would add chartreuse. I would bathe in
Great,
chartreuse.
yeah.
Wouldn't we all?
Would I get drunk off of it? Possibly. Probably. Maybe not.
Yes. That honey sweetness just
Yeah.
coats your tongue.
It's important to remember. I mean, this viscosity is nothing to joke about. It's very heavy.
Yes.
It's extremely nectar-like when you first take a sip of it.
Yeah.
It's very coating, but the finish has nothing harsh or sharp about it whatsoever. It's extremely round. It's extremely welcoming, and will add both flavor and kind of fat and viscosity to a
Yeah.
cocktail.
Because the weight of it, once you're done sipping,
Very
it kind of like
tarragon.
hangs out in the back palate and then just kind of like smooths everything out.
Oh, I call those my sweet pockets.
Oh,
Sweet
wait.
pockets.
Sweet pockets. So like the
I
part
love
that's
that, Booms.
right
That's so good.
right behind your molars, I guess it would be like on the sides of your tongue.
That may be the most adorable thing you've ever said
It's my
in
sweet
this
pockets.
in this podcast.
In these
I'm so
hallowed halls.
happy about
You're
that. I'm never
welcome.
going to not think of them that way.
Hey.
It's like
You're next
it's
week.
like a little
Booms, how your
flavor
Sweet
hug.
Pockets doing this
Oh,
week?
yeah.
Right after eating cake. Oh,
Oh,
sweet
they're
pockets
great.
are so full.
After that spicy shrimp, your sweet pockets will be scorched.
You know what? I'm fully recovered from the spicy shrimp, and I'm okay now.
Yeah, you're poor diabolique.
All right, Foley, turn me on, dead man.
So yeah, 50-50. I'm going to try to just eyeball this.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Beautiful.
I'll do it too. I don't want to be left out.
FOMO.
Because
Almost
we're the
get
three best friends that anyone could have.
Aww.
Drinking chartreuse all day.
This is
Sorry.
a sweet syrupy version of the podcast.
So 110 proof on the green. We've mixed it 50-50 with
Yeah.
yellow.
Yeah. And
No.
the color.
the difference between 80 and 110.
I mean, we're sure we're going to talk about green a little bit more in a
95?
second, but when you get to the green, there's it was described as active. To me, that's almost an edginess where it keeps kind of
Mhm.
racing
I wonder
along
if
the
we
side of
can
my
look at
palate,
the-
and
yeah, you can't really. Oh, that works too.
also gets fairly intense on traditional green herbs. I mean, the ones you think about when you cook: basil, rosemary, thyme, tarragon, sage, but citrus. And I've heard a number of people pull apple out of it too, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility because
wonder-
green chartreuse will mix with apple things like cider,
yeah.
fresh pressed juice.
I wonder if it's like the sugar beets thing, because I always found sugar beets taste very appley.
Ooh.
Really,
Yeah,
Ooh.
interesting.
you like that, don't you?
Ooh.
I do like the combo because you get more of that like herbaceous activity, like you were
Yeah.
talking about, but
But
the yellow
sweetness of
sweetness
the yellow holds
makes it a little more
down.
palatable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have I never in 5 years suggested that we do this?
I mean, we had it as a shot one time on a
I've
menu, but
failed you.
I've just never.
I've
never
done a shot of
drank it.
this before with you.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
Mhm.
You all want to find you want to hear a fun fact about green chartreuse
Yes.
and yellow chartreuse? It's both versions that are their like kind of baseline versions. So There is a lot number on every bottle cap.
You made me do this earlier.
It's listed right underneath, like where the name kind of like in the mid spot of the name in the gold part of the cap underneath the twist.
I will assess this.
So if you add the first 3 numbers in the lot number to the year the Carthusian order was founded, 1084, you'll get the year of production. So both of these bottles, 937. Yep, both these bottles start 937. So they were made in the year 2021. They're very new, very fresh. We get them delivered probably almost every week.
No, Shardy made me do the day.
Oh,
right. So that's the second
you
part.
Do have that weird talent.
Yeah. John's a savant for days of the year. It's weird.
You can be like, what is the 165th day of the year? And he'll be like, that's Sunday.
It's in
I'm
June.
sometimes
July.
off by a day.
Well, yeah.
It's like early
It's
June.
pretty impressive still, though.
Anyway.
I'll give you that.
So the last 3 numbers of that lot number. So the first 3 give you the year. The last 3 give you the day of the year. So it's the like XXX number of the 365-day year for that production year. So we did this one earlier. Green Chartreuse, the last 3 numbers is 105. That's April 15th. And the yellow Chartreuse, the last numbers are 188, and that is July 7th. Wow. I just found that fun. Quick and easy math.
Yeah.
That is cool. You can figure out when made your bottle of Chartreuse.
I was mentally just doing the math to make sure I was right.
I
think I was right on both.
You were right on both of them, yeah. There are vintage bottles you could probably find in old dusty like liquor stores somewhere, and they would be upwards of a couple $100. Yeah. Like these bottles normally are around what, 60, 65?
Yeah, well,
in Michigan?
Yeah, now it's probably about $60, $70 for state minimum. Which I mean, nobody's gonna overcharge for this. It's gonna be state minimum when you find it.
Typically, yeah.
Remember that Chartreuse in cocktail use, unless you're just jamming last words, a ton of them.
Which is what I do every single Sunday.
Yeah, you can get away with a half to 3/4 of an ounce to accomplish whatever recipe you're going to make. So yeah, it's going to take a chunk of change to get some home. You can make it last. Yeah. However, Chartreuse, I believe for a lot of people is the type of thing you drink when you're out, because the bars have it. You don't have to spend a bunch on the bottle. You have a couple last words. You have a couple cocktails while you're out, and then you kind of fix your Chartreuse Jones.
And
Chartreuse Jones.
Obviously
Chartreuse
the last
Jones,
word
which is a band. Should be a band.
Oh, I was going to say it's my stage name.
Chartreuse Jones.
Chartreuse Jones.
Obviously the last word is one of the ones everyone knows about. But if you're not familiar with the Chartreuse Swizzle in the summertime, you need to be. Because that drink.
Or a bijou in the wintertime.
Or a bijou in the wintertime, yes.
Or a Tipperary in March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of variations on cocktails. You can
French Chaud. Do you know French Chaud?
No.
French, and then CHAUD, I believe, is the name for it. And this is what they drink in like the ski lodges.
Oh, yeah.
In the Alpine area. It's literally just green Chartreuse and hot chocolate.
Oh, shit.
Yes. Which I'm sad to say I've never done.
Ooh,
but I really want to. Like some good, like bitter hot chocolate.
Yeah, you would need like dark.
We should sell that in the wintertime. Just
although
wow,
6 ounce bottles of Chartreuse, basically, so you can share it with
sweeter hot chocolate might work too. Like how the sweetness of
so it is now. It's now March. We have till October in Michigan to get this done. For like our winter menu.
Oh, okay.
We can figure this out by then.
Yeah. We need to figure out how to
what kind of hot chocolate we want to put in there.
I thought you were trying to say October is when winter ends in Michigan. I was like, well, you're not entirely wrong.
No. For next winter, this is what we have to do. The people deserve French Chaud and Fenton.
So y'all know the process for making green Chartreuse takes about 2 months to complete per batch.
I'm not surprised whatsoever.
It includes blending and aging.
Heavy maceration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Each batch is about 42,000 liters of product over that period. It's about 1.5 tons of herbs and or spices to make such batch. They use copper pot stills in the traditional style. They have used column stills in the past, and there's like a year range that if you find that bottle again, it's like super
worth money.
Vintage. And then green and yellow are both aged for a minimum of 3 years in oak vats that contain a maximum of 50,000 liters, and then steeped down into 12,000 liter vats. Versus the VEP is aged anywhere between 8 to 15-ish years, whenever the monks deem that appropriate.
Easily over $100 a bottle.
Yep, and then they are aged in 30,000. No, excuse me.
We're at 43. We're all right.
Yeah, 30,000
good.
liter vats.
Well, I was going to say, I was checking time with Mark.
No, you're good. Because we have a little story if we can.
The cool part about if you're one of our Michigan people, I would just assume that everybody who listens to us is somebody we know, but maybe not now. Hopefully not.
Tell your friends, tell your kids, tell your wife.
Tell your cousins
If
from
you
Nebraska.
have, if you're not that far from Detroit, I mean, luckily, one of the best places around the Midwest to drink Chartreuse is the restaurant and bar Chartreuse in Detroit. Sandy Levine, who owns it, is an exceptionally nice person, and I would say pretty heavily obsessed with Chartreuse, and has a great collection of vintage bottles of Chartreuse. They use Chartreuse in recipes, and it's an amazing place that celebrates the product, but also is an amazing restaurant and bar, even all on its own without the Chartreuse connection. But it's a cool space to celebrate that spirit.
Crafty, creative, very wonderful dishes that they put forth. All their staff are insanely nice, and they've got like the steps of service down to a T. I heard that they don't have any type of refrigeration. They get their products sent to them every single day. Like, so if you get new meat, new chicken, etc., it's there that day.
You know what I'm thinking about? Only because I haven't eaten today. Imagine just like green Chartreuse with like some herbed lamb, like pan-seared.
So you're wait a second, you haven't eaten today, and you're raw dogging Chartreuse for the podcast.
Fucking A.
Good for you.
Yes, sir. I told you I was running behind this morning. So.
Yeah, I just assumed it was
haven't
because
even
you were
had
getting
coffee.
swole at the gym or something.
No.
Some
My
reps.
phone died, and I didn't have my alarm. So.
Oh no.
Yes. I woke up and I was like, ah!
Oh, good for you. You made it though.
Made it.
There you are. So now, as you can, we just for those who can actually see, this is just the green in the glass. So it's not insanely.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
we have a light on it right now.
That sounded so good in the headphones. You're like, it's not insanely, and Boone's just like, yeah.
It's not super green. So
well, I was about to say too, it's no like darker. I guess it is. It doesn't seem that much darker than yellow Chartreuse. It just seems a hue greener.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
In the glass. Yeah.
In the glass. Yeah, and that proof jumpage was very obvious once you go from just yellow to
80 all the way up to
more
1.
mentholy on the nose.
Yeah.
Super mentholated.
Yeah.
And just more assertive, and I think more linear in the way it attacks your palate. It goes straight back, kind of the way the yellow one spreads out and kind of fills your palate.
It's like a rocket straight to the dome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my sweet pockets are not really activated.
They're not as engaged.
Not as engaged.
Yeah.
No. Wow.
It's more the back of the teeth.
Absolutely.
Sweet pockets.
The sweet pockets. Yeah.
You'll never forget it. The Chartreuse restaurant and bar is amazing. We also have closer to us in Ann Arbor, the Last Word Bar.
The Last Word,
which is named after the cocktail. Yeah.
Named after the cocktail, the Last Word.
Yep.
Detroit's original cocktail.
Yes.
By Frank Fogarty of the Detroit Athletic Association
1913
Club. Yes.
All right.
And it gets published in a book in 1950, specifically Ted Saucier's Bottoms Up, a 1950s cocktail book. It gets lost to the annals of time until it reaches Murray Stevenson of the Seattle Zigzag Club, where it's kind of revived.
Yeah.
I thought that should be fun. Chartreuse could get its own podcast, in my opinion. Or, excuse me, Last Word. This is the Chartreuse podcast.
I thought we were doing that right now.
The Last Word and other equal proportion cocktails.
What have we been doing for the last hour?
Too much coffee and Chartreuse. It's a great combination.
Yes, you're saying like do a
cocktail podcast
specifically
an equal parts cocktail podcast in particular.
Could do. Mm-hmm. Plenty of options.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, at least for
that would be fun.
I mean, I don't know if our specs necessarily are all the time classic specs, because I know you have kind of tinkered around with some proportions.
House styles.
Yeah.
Some cocktails more than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like the Tipperary, I feel like is pretty classic build.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I looked.
Yeah. Which also another great Chartreuse drink.
Yeah, an Irish Manhattan with green Chartreuse along with vermouth.
Yeah.
And I like orange bitters instead of aromatic.
It's pretty rowdy.
Yeah, it is.
I like that drink a lot.
So hopefully if you already know Chartreuse, this was educational. If you're already familiar with how it tastes, if you don't know it and you haven't been drinking it, you really should. It's wonderful. It's one of the most specific and engaging things that you can possibly drink in the world of distilled spirits.
Yes.
I would give a lot away before I gave Chartreuse away in terms of what I would drink like forever. You could strip a lot of things away before I would let that one go.
Yep.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to drink, if you could only drink Chartreuse or Scotch for the rest of your life.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be Scotch.
It's not
but
fair.
Really,
yeah,
really
Scotch has more
it.
variations.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's a rough one.
I feel I could only drink like Chartreuse or Braulio, like pick a random Amaro. I might choose Chartreuse. That'd be better.
I would definitely choose Chartreuse in that instance.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like Braulio.
Chartreuse or Fernet.
Oh.
You know what? I love Fernet so much, but I might choose Chartreuse.
Dude, I definitely would.
I also love Fernet, but like I find I can use Chartreuse in more applications.
Right.
Yes,
so if I was not even allowed to drink Chartreuse, like if it was only neat, maybe my answer would be Fernet. But because it's more wide open than that, I would say Chartreuse.
Plus, then anytime all you guys wanted to do like a shot of Fernet, I just have to be the gorilla in the room that did a shot of green Chartreuse. It feels so hardcore.
Sorry, guys. It's all I can do.
Oh, Fernet. That's cute.
Check this out.
All right, well, I'm going to end with a small pour of the VEP.
Oh, my God.
And thank you, Courtney, for all of the fantastic research
I try my best
on Chartreuse, one of the most legendary and important liqueurs in the world. And
I think our final send-off, it should be you trying to pronounce the VEP in full, which is written on the back of that bottle.
Yeah.
Before we do that real quick, be sure to check us out on all of our social medias.
Thank you,
Facebook,
Marty.
Relief and Resource Company. Instagram, Relief and Resource. Twitter is Relief.
And join us for our next episode, which we will hash out white wines appropriate for the spring and summer, aromatic and dry and crisp white wines, perfect for your season with our guest.
Special guest.
Yes. Sommelier Hassan Rutherford, who will join us, and we're going to get real wine nerdy.
That's going to be a fun one.
Let's see, just this part right here is what you want me to
on the
pronounce?
back.
Get after it.
On the back.
That one.
Oh.
Into the microphone.
Vieillissement. Exceptionnellement prolongue.
I think you definitely got that last one right.
That was great.
Yeah, it's liqueur fabriqué par la Perret Chartreuse. I don't know.
Muy bueno.
That was hot.
Yeah, well, if it was a wine bottle, I get it right. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much
Yachara.
to everybody.
See you in the next
See you next one. Now, let me tell you something, dear listeners. I had hot salsa shrimp for lunch yesterday, and I've been in major discomfort for the last 18 hours.